Hey everybody. Alright, I'm going to be sitting down because Lord knows I don't want to be having to stand up while we're going through this short story because I just want to get through this. I don't want any distractions because it's only going to put it off. It's going to take up more memory and we're just going to have less time. So, the best way to do it, and the easiest and most effective way to do it is to do it. And I think that this year is just, all about, commitments and starting new. And I think that I'm going to plan on getting rid of stuff just so that I can feel like my mental slate is, a little bit more cleared away. And that means that we are not going to continue reading Dragon Rider. I cannot continue to do something that I will only be half motivated. I know that I'm not going to commit. And, it's funny to think that you were all reading something that was so hard to picture. And if you were all younger, if I was younger, that'd be different. But I'm not. And I really, really feel like I agree with that. And plus, it's just not the right thing. It's not, realistic in reality. And it's not really, tying to Scorpio. And I think now we are going to be starting reading things that tie in to the zodiac signs. When we get to Sagittarius season, that doesn't mean that Camellia Funk will be on my radar. If we should read an adventure story, it will not be a fantasy adventure story. And when we get to Cancer or Virgo season again in September, there is no way that I will allow any of you. And should we have a fire burning in the west again, making the sky over to the south look hazy, should I ever allow you to read Fahrenheit 451 in 1984 again at that time of year? Well, that's just not going to happen. So, I think that, I'm going to be having a new beginning. I've been, dealing with it for too long, and, I think that you can all remember the message of the song We Go On is what I was, reiterating. And I was feeling very emotional, about it this morning, as you could tell, and very, convicting in what I was saying, because it really resonated with me, and it resonated with the situation that we're going through right now. Life goes on. If I could go into the past and I could change things that I didn't like that I did, oh, you bet that I would have already done everything by now. The problem is life is just, it doesn't work like that. And, you need to just move on, because life goes on. And sometimes you try, but you just can't move on, so you need to get rid of stuff. We're going to be doing a little clean out. If there's anything that is distracting to you, if there's anything that you want to get rid of, there will be a bring and buy sale that will be going on later this afternoon, and it will be set up at the Menton headquarters. You will be searching through your things and finding things that you want to give away. And I know that I will be giving away Dragon Warrior. If you feel like you want to hang on to that thing and you have the mental capacity to do so, by all means. I don't want to take that away from you. However, I don't want to have things hanging around, that make me feel shameful of myself for things I can't change and guilty. Throw it in the face. The past is in the past. We can only change the future and the present. So, out with the old, in with the new. Okay, so I am going to be playing for you this story. So, we're going to be continuing on. Some of you may be disappointed. Well, let me tell you, I'm not disappointed at all. And that's for darn sure. Because when one doesn't feel cleared and pure, then it really affects their what they do, how serious their commitments, all of those things. And this is really for the better that we're going to be doing this. So I just want you all to be aware. So the only things that should still, be lingering is just the memory of that. And that's all. And it will probably be maybe years and years until, we would read things like that again.
I'm thinking, and it was all marvelous. You were equipped with good inside, so you didn't go to pieces that way, the way most of them had. And you made an attitude that you cared nothing for the work you used to do, now that you could no longer do it. But in yourself, you said that you would write about these people, about the very rich, that you were really not of them, but a spy in their country. That you would leave it and write of it, and for once it would be written by someone who knew what he was writing about. But he would never do it, because each day of not writing, of comfort, of being that which he despised, dulled his ability, and softened his will to work, so that finally he did no work at all. The people he knew now were all much more comfortable when he didn't work. Africa was where he'd been happiest in the good time of his life, so he'd come out here to start again. They'd made this safari with the minimum of comfort. There was no hardship. hardship, but there was no luxury, and he felt that he could get back into training that way. That in some way he could work the fat off his soul the way a fighter went into the mountains to work and train in order to burn it out of his body. She liked it. She said she loved it. She loved anything that was exciting, that involved a change of scene, where there were new people and where things were pleasant. And he felt the illusion of returning strength of will to work. Now, if this was how it ended, and he knew it was, he must not turn like some snake biting itself because his back was broken. It wasn't this woman's fault. If it had not been she, it would have been another. If he lived by a lie, he should try to die by it. He heard a shot behind the hill. She shot very well, this good, this rich bitch, this kindly caretaker and destroyer of his talent. Nonsense. He destroyed his talent himself. Why should he blame this woman because she kept him well? He destroyed his talent by not using it. By his betrayals of himself and what he believed in, by drinking so much that he blunted the edge of his perceptions, by laziness, by sloth, and by snobbery, by pride, and by prejudice, by hope, and by crook. What was this, a catalogue of old books? What was his talent anyway? It was a talent, all right, but instead of using it, he traded on it. It was never what he had done, but always what he could do. And he'd chosen to make his living with something else instead of a pen or a pencil. It was strange, too, wasn't it, that when he fell in love with another woman, that woman should always have more money than the last one. But when he no longer was in love, when he was only lying, as to this woman now, who had the most money of all, who had all the money there was, who had had a husband and children, who had taken lovers and been dissatisfied with them, and who loved him dearly as a writer, as a man, as a companion, and as a proud possession. It was strange that when he did not love her at all and was lying, that he should be able to give her more for the money than when he had really loved. We must all be cut out for what we do, he thought. However you make your living is where your talent lies. He had sold vitality in one form or another all his life. And when your affections are not too involved, you get much better value for the money. He had found that out, but he would never write that now, he did. No, he would not write that, although it was well worth writing. Now she came in sight, walking across the open toward the camp. She was wearing jodhpurs and carrying her rifle. The two boys had a Tommy slung, and they were coming along behind her. She was a damn nice woman, too. He'd as soon be in bed with her as anyone. Rather with her, because she was richer. And because she was very pleasant and appreciative, and because she never made scenes. And now this life that she had built again was coming to a turn because he had not used iodine 2 weeks ago when a thorn had scratched his knee, as they moved forward trying to photograph a herd of water bucks standing, their heads up, peering while their nostrils searched the air.
Wait.
Their ears spread wide to hear the first noise that would send them rushing into the bush.
Who is this?
And they bolted, too, before he got the picture. There she came now. He turned his head in the cot to look toward her. "Hello," he said. "I shot a Tommy ram," she told him. "He'll make you good broth, and I'll have them mashed some potatoes with a clim. How do you feel?" "Much better." "Isn't that lovely? You know, I thought perhaps you would. You were sleeping when I left." "I had a good sleep. Did you walk far?" "No, just around behind the hill. I made quite a good shot in the Tommy." "You shoot marvelously, you know." "I love it. I've loved Africa, really. If you're all right, it's the most fun that I've ever had. You don't know the fun it's been to shoot with you. I've loved the country." "Yeah, I love it, too. Darling, you don't know how marvelous it is to see feeling that. I couldn't stand it when you felt that way. You won't talk to me like that again, will you? Promise me?" "No," he said. "I don't remember what I said." "You don't have to destroy me, do you? I'm only a middle-aged woman who loves you and wants to do what you want to do. I've been destroyed 2 or 3 times already. You wouldn't want to destroy me again, would you?" "I'd like to destroy you a few times in bed," he said. "Yes, that's the good destruction. That's the way we're made to be destroyed. The plane will be here tomorrow." "How do you know?" "I'm sure. It's bound to come. The boys have the wood all ready and the grass to make the smudge. I went down and looked at it again today. There's plenty of room to land, and we have the smudges ready at both ends. What makes you think it'll come tomorrow? I'm sure it will. It's overdue now. Then in town, they'll fix up your leg, and then we'll have some good destruction. Not that dreadful talking kind. Should we have a drink? The sun's down. Do you think we should? I'm having one. We'll have one together. Molo, let you do whiskey soda? She called. You'd better put on your mosquito boots, he told her. I'll wait all day. When it grew dark, they drank, and just before it was dark and there was no longer enough light to shoot, a hyena crossed the open on his way around the hill. That bastard crosses there every night, the man said, every night for 2 weeks. He's the one who makes the noise at night. I don't mind it. They're a filthy animal, though. Drinking together with no pain now except the discomfort of lying in the one position, the boys lighting a fire, its shadow jumping on the tents, he could feel the return of acquiescence in this life of pleasant surrender. She was very good to him. He had been cruel and unjust in the afternoon. She was a fine woman. Marvelous, really. And just then it occurred to him that he was going to die. It came with a rush. Not as a rush of water nor of wind, but of a sudden evil-smelling emptiness. And the odd thing was that the hyena slipped lightly along the edge of it. What is it, Harry? She asked him. Nothing, he said. You'd better move over to the other side, to windward. Did Molo change the dressing? Yes, I'm just using the Boric now. How do you feel? A little wobbly. I'm going in to bathe, she said. I'll be right out. I'll eat with you, and then we'll put the cot in. So, he said to himself, we did well to stop the quarreling. He'd never quarreled much with this woman, while with the women that he loved, he quarreled so much that they'd finally always, with the corrosion of the quarreling, killed what they had together. He'd loved too much, demanded too much, and he wore it all out. You remember?
Okay, I'm stopping it now because of what just went on in the story. So how do you think that their relationship is feeling along right now? Yes. Yeah, because of his, his leg and of his, behavior due to his drinking habits. And his wife is very into Africa. Having fun there. And now there's going to be a little letter.
With the good times with them all, and the quarrels. They always picked the finest places to have the quarrels. And why did they always quarrel when he was feeling best? He'd never written any of that, because at first he never wanted to hurt anyone. And then it seemed as though there was enough to write without it. But he'd always thought that he would write it finally. There was so much to write. He'd seen the world change, not just the events, although he'd seen many of them and had watched the people. But he had seen the subtler change, and he could remember how the people were at different times. He'd been in it, and he'd watched it, and it was his duty to write of it. But now he never would. How do you feel? She said. She'd come out from the tent now after her bath. All right. Could you eat now? He saw Molo behind her with a folding table and the other boy.
On the next page.
I want to write, he said. You got to take some broth to keep your strength up. I'm going to die tonight, he said. I don't need my strength up. Don't be melodramatic, Harry, please, she said. Why don't you use your nose? I'm rotted halfway up my thigh now. What the hell should I fool with broth for? Molo, bring whiskey soda. Please take the broth, she said gently. All right. The broth was too hot. He had to hold it in the cup until it cooled enough to take it, and then he just got it down without gagging. fine woman, he said. Don't pay any attention to me. She looked at him with her well-known, well-loved face from spur and town and country. Only a little the worse for drink, only a little the worse for bed. But town and country never showed those good breasts, and those useful thighs, and those lightly small back-caressing hands. And as he looked and saw her well-known pleasant smile, he felt death come again. This time there was no rush. It was a pop, as of a wind that makes a candle flicker and the flame go tall. They can bring my net out later and hang it from the tree and build a fire up. I'm not going in the tent tonight. It's not worth moving. It's a clear night. There won't be any rain. So this was how you died, in whispers that you didn't hear. Well, there would be no more quarreling, he had promised that. The one experience that he'd never had, he was not going to spoil now. He probably would
So he
spoil
probably
everything.
tried himself for
Perhaps he
that
wouldn't.
show already.
You can't take dictation, can you? I never learned, she told him. That's all right. There wasn't time, of course. Although it seemed as though it telescoped so that you might put it all into one paragraph if you could get it right. There was a log house, chinked white with mortar on a hill above the lake. There was a bell on a pole with a door to call people into meals. Behind the house were fields, and behind the fields was the timber. A line of Lombardy poplars ran from the house to the dock. Other poplars ran along the point. A road went up to the hills along the edge of the timber, and along that road he picked blackberries. Then that log house was burned down, and all the guns that had been on deerfoot racks above the open fireplace were burned. And afterwards their barrels with the lead melted in the magazines and the stocks burned away lay out in a heap of ashes that we used to make lye for the big iron soap kettles. And you asked Grandfather if you could have them to play with, and he said no. You see, they were his guns still, and he never bought any others, nor did he hunt anymore. The house was rebuilt in the same place, out of lumber now, and painted white. And from its porch you saw the poplars and the lake beyond, but there were never any more guns. The barrels of the guns that had hung in the deer feed in the wall of the log house lay out there in a heap of ashes, and no one ever touched them. In the Black Forest, after the war, we rented a trout stream, and there were two ways to walk to it. One was down the valley from Triberg and around the valley road in the shade of the trees that bordered the white road, and then up a side road that went up through the hills past many small farms with the big Schwarzwald houses until that road crossed the stream. That was where our fishing began. The other way was to climb steeply up to the edge of the woods and then go across the top of the hills through the pine woods, and then out to the edge of a meadow and down across this meadow to the bridge. There were birches along the stream, and it was not big, but narrow, clear, and fast, with pools where it had come under the roots of the birches. At the hotel in Triberg, the proprietor had a fine season. It was very pleasant. They were all great friends. The next year came the inflation, and the money he'd made the year before was not enough to buy supplies to open the hotel. And he hanged himself. You could dictate that, but you couldn't dictate the Place Contrescott, where the flower sellers dyed their flowers in the street, and the dye ran over the paving where the autobus started, and the old men and the women always drunk on wine and bad mock, and the children with their noses running in the cold, the smell of dirty sweat and poverty and drunkenness at the Café des Amateurs, and the whores at the Bal Musette they lived above. The concierge, who entertained the trooper of the Garde Républicaine in her loge, his horsehair-plumed helmet on a chair. The locataire across the hall, whose husband was a bicycle racer, and her joy that morning at the Crémerie, when she'd opened Lotto and seen where he placed third in the Paris Tour, his first big race. She'd blushed and laughed, and then gone upstairs crying with the yellow sporting page in her hand. The husband of the woman who ran the Bal Musette drove a taxi, and when he, Harry, had to take an early plane, the husband knocked on the door to wake him, and they each drank a glass of white wine at the zinc of the bar before they started. He knew his neighbors in that quarter then because they all were poor. Around that place there were two kinds, the drunkards and the sportifs. The drunkards killed their poverty that way, the sportifs took it out in exercise. They were the descendants of the communards, and it was no struggle for them to know their politics. They knew who had shot their fathers, their relatives, their brothers, and their friends when the Versailles troops came in and took the town after the Commune. and executed anyone they could catch with calloused hands, or who wore a cap or carried any other sign he was a working man. And in that poverty and in that quarter across the street from a boucherie Chevelin and a wine cooperative, he had written the start of all he was to do. And never was another part of Paris that he loved like that. The sprawling trees, the old white plastered houses painted brown below, the long green of the autobus and the round square, the purple flower dye on the paving. Sudden drop down the hill of the Rue Cardinal Lemoine to the river, and the other way the now crowded world of the Rue Mouffetard. The street that ran up toward the Pantheon, and the other that he always took with a bicycle, the only asphalted street in all that quarter, smooth under the tires, with the high, narrow houses and the cheap, tall hotel where Paul Verlaine had died. There were only 2 rooms in the apartments where they lived, and he had a room on the top floor of that hotel that cost him 60 francs a month where he did his writing. And from it he could see the roofs and chimney pots and all the hills of Paris. From the apartment you could only see the wooden coal man's place. He sold wine too, bad wine. The Golden Horse's Head outside the Boucherie Chevelin, where the carcasses hung yellow, gold, and red in the open window, and the green-painted cooperative where they bought their wine, good wine and cheap. The rest was plaster walls and the windows of the neighbors. The neighbors who at night, when someone lay drunk in the street, moaning and groaning in that typical French ivresse that you were propaganded to believe did not exist, would open their windows and then the murmur of talk. Where's the policeman? When you don't want him, the bugger's always there. He's sleeping with some concierge. Get the agent. So someone threw a bucket of water from a window and the moaning stopped. What's that? Water. Ah, that's intelligence. And the window's shutting. Marie, his femme de ménage, protesting against the 8-hour day, saying, if her husband works until 6, he gets only a little drunk on the way home, does not waste too much. If he works only until 5, he is drunk every night, and one has no money. It is the wife of the working man who suffers from this shortening of hours. Wouldn't you like some more broth? The woman asked him now. No, thank you very much. It's awfully good. Try just a little. I would like a whiskey soda. It's not good for you. No, it's bad for me. Cole Porter wrote the words and the music, this knowledge that you're going mad for me. You know I like you to drink. Oh, yes, only it's bad for me. When she goes, he thought, I'll have all I want. Not all I want, but all there is. He was tired. Too tired. He was going to sleep a little while. He lay still, and death was not there. It must have gone around another street. It went in pairs on bicycles and moved absolutely silently on the pavement. No, he'd never written about Paris. Not the Paris that he cared about. But what about the rest that he'd never written? What about the ranch? And the silvered gray of the sagebrush, the quick clear water in the irrigation ditches, and the heavy green of the alfalfa? The trail went up into the hills, and the cattle in the summer were shy as deer. The bawling and the steady noise and slow-moving mass raising a dust as you brought them down in the fall. And behind the mountains, the clear sharpness of the peak in the evening light, and riding down along the trail in the moonlight, right across the valley. Nellie remembered coming down through the timber in the dark, holding the horse's tail when you couldn't see, and all the stories that he meant to her. About the half-wit shore boy who was left at the ranch that time and told not to let anyone get any hay. That old bastard from the Forks who'd beaten the boy when he'd worked for him, stopping to get some feed. The boy refusing, and the old man saying he'd beat him again. The boy got the rifle from the kitchen and shot him when he tried to come into the barn. And when they came back to the ranch, he'd been dead a week, frozen in the corral, and the dogs had eaten part of him. But what was left, you packed on a sled, wrapped in a blanket, and roped on, and you got the boy to help you haul it. And the 2 of you took it out over the road on skis and 60 miles down to town to turn the boy over. He having no idea he would be arrested. Thinking he'd done his duty and that you were his friend and he would be rewarded. He'd helped to haul the old man in so everyone could know how bad the old man had been and how he tried to steal some feed that didn't belong to him. And when the sheriff put the handcuffs on the boy, he couldn't believe it. Then he started to cry. That was one story he'd saved to write. He knew at least 20 good stories from out there, and he'd never written one. Why? You tell him why, he said. Why what, dear? Why nothing? She didn't drink so much now since she had him. But if he lived, he would never write about her. He knew that now. Nor about any of them. The rich were dull, and they drank too much, or they played too much backgammon. They were dull, and they were repetitious. He remembered poor Julian and his romantic awe of them, and how he started a story once that began, "The very rich are different from you and me," and how someone had said to Julian, yes, they had more money. But that was not humorous to Julian. He thought they were a special glamorous race, and when he found they weren't, it wrecked him just as much as any other thing wrecked him. He'd been contemptuous of those who wrecked. He didn't have to like it because you understood it. He could beat anything, he thought, because nothing could hurt him if he didn't care. All right. Now he would not care for death. One thing he'd always dreaded was the pain. He could stand pain as well as any man until it went on too long and wore him out, but here he had something that had hurt him frightfully, and just when he felt it breaking him, the pain had stopped. He remembered long ago.
Okay, let's stop. Here just a second. I'm gonna stop and see how much